Enlightenment and Healing. Are you getting what I'm selling? People often quote the 80-20 rule. 80% of people will like or dislike something, and that 20% of people will see it the other way. I've experienced it with Qigong and meditation. There are what my colleague calls swimmers and deep divers. Certainly the deep divers of Qigong fall into the 20% portion. People cycle through my class. They stay for a few months and tell me, "This is the best thing I've ever done." Then they disappear, normally without any explanation. I don't take it personally anymore, as I understand the ebb and flow of people's lives. People move for work, relations die, children are born, families split. In the early days of teaching, one particularly ardent student who was with me for several years disappeared one day. I firstly felt worried, and then sad and disappointed. I felt I must have failed her in some way as a teacher. I've never chased students, so I continued with my emails and classes. A few years later, she popped into the class looking really well. "I've just returned from Australia where I've been living. I still do my Qigong every day." Amongst all the organisations of immigrating, her weekly classes had fallen between the cracks. A tiny thing for her, a bigger thing at that time for me. I'd be foolish to think I had found the panacea for all ills in Qigong. That said, I have also seen astonishing healings that can come about through using it. Looking at Dr. Pang's Medicines Hospital, if you haven't heard of this remarkable facility that ran for 10 years in China, I and many people have written about it elsewhere. There were many miracle healings that came out of it. They claimed an overall improvement rate of 95%, 5% miracle instant cures, 45% so deeply in remission it was no longer detectable, further 45% satisfactorily healed, and only 5% of people didn't make it. Many researchers have delved into this idea of miracles. On the edges of medicine, and generally repressed, there are stories like Anita Morjani's astonishing resurrection from her deathbed, riddled with cancer, to being released from hospital 3 weeks later, healed. There is no medical precedent for that. She had just decided to heal. What gives people the drive to start a Qigong class? Sadly, it's usually a life challenge. We rarely invest time in keeping ourselves well, but only seek help, often when Western medicine has given up on us. So often my students are already on heavy prescriptions or damaged by shocking surgery before they finally Qigong. What creates a miracle healing? Well, if I had to answer that in a trite sentence, I'd just say the power of the mind. Right, time for a really deep dive then. Western science's quantum physics is starting to demonstrate the vast amount of space inside everything we see as being solid. The more you look into molecules and atoms, the more you find there's nothing there. It's frankly disturbing to find that our solid world is somewhat of an illusion. I'd go further. It seems that consciousness research is showing us that this illusory world that we seem to inhabit may all be the product of our consciousness. Sorry if your world is about to become unmoored, but this is the process of unmooring this ship. That is how we're going to heal ourselves at the deepest root levels. It's pretty difficult to believe that you are just consciousness experiencing the world as this 3D reality. However much our science is now pointing in this direction. The story goes thus. The double-slit experiment showed us when an observer, say you, was present, then the experiment changed. A wave changed into a particle, and when you stopped observing, then it slouched back into a wave. Our consciousness, quite literally, makes our reality. It goes much deeper than this, as I've found out personally. But let's not worry about that. Let's rather ask what this apparent nonsense actually means to us. People claim that mantras and affirmations work for them. Well, it makes sense if you bring all of your conscious focus to bear on a problem or an outcome that you're hoping for. Then if consciousness really does make our reality, it should come to bear in some form or another. There's a snag. There's always a snag. We learn that 95% of all of our thoughts are subconscious. You might put 5% of your consciousness to something, but deep inside, 95% of you really doesn't believe it's going to happen. This is what's meant by self-sabotaging. So let's take that 95% story a little further. Why do psychologists always harp on about our childhoods? In Chinese medicine, we're taught the first 7 years of a child's life, the child is without any emotional protection whatsoever. If said child is then subjected to abuse, violence, horrors such as war, then these mark one for life. It doesn't even have to be that dramatic. Adoption, abandonment, withholding of love, and what I like to call Victorian parenting, all scar just as deeply, depending on the person. What are you a victim of? Did your parents divorce when you were little? Did an uncle abuse you? Were you adopted? None of these things are to be taken lightly. They affect the inner child, who then grows up, sometimes never, into an adult with issues, being controlled by their unfortunate childhoods. Patterns make you chronically ill. It's a truth that I've seen time and time again. We find childhood ways to defend ourselves, or adult ways to lock painful memories deep inside. These inevitably find a way back to the surface. It's not an obvious process either. Did you choose a job you thought would make your father love you more? Did you choose a partner maybe for their looks alone? Did you pick a house for its status rather than its vibe? Did you give whilst everybody took due to your low self-esteem? Are you a victim of your circumstances? Did a surgeon leave you as half a person? Did an operation limit your life? Maybe a death left you feeling lonely. Maybe a divorce left you on a shelf in your prime. Did selfish parents leave you unable to trust or love anybody again? Did a selfish child or partner damage your sense of self? All of these things are being done to you. But who is the you that we speak of? If we're actually consciousness, then the you is a construct that consciousness has put together to navigate this game of life. Stay with me. If the you is actually just a construct, then surely you can use your consciousness to fix it. This type of quantum healing is beyond meditation and Qigong. It's a total self-realization. When you discover your true self, then anything can heal instantly. It is a miracle. Dr. Pang always tells a story about a gentleman who was crushed in a factory accident, severing his spine and instantly making him paraplegic from the neck down. His friends put pictures of our exercise set, known as Lift You Up and Port You Down, round his bed. He practiced in his head many times per day. After a few months, he discovered movement in his fingers, then his arms. Gradually, he was able to sit. Well, then he redoubled his work, locking the family out of his room except for meal times. He went so deep and believed so completely, and had nothing to lose, that he recovered completely. I don't know the timescale, but I think about a year. He went on to be a famous teacher at the Medicine's Hospital. A perfect example of mind over matter. This is not a possibility in Western-style medicine. It just comes under the heading miracle and gets cast to one side as an anomaly. Do you think your operation or disability was worse than his? Do you think that you are any less worthy than him? If so, there's a pattern you might want to fix. I'm guessing the only thing you lack is motivation. Doing this all on your own requires a huge commitment and a really strong mind. In the West, we apply our strong minds to learning and researching into our problem, which is actually just a very highbrow avoidance technique. The more worthy your reading, the better it must be for you. No, unless you put in the hours, you'll not heal. I met a lady who practiced 2 standing meditation sessions each day, and of 2 hours at a time, in deep meditation, connecting to her true self. In 3 months, she had healed herself of breast cancer, insomnia, and an addiction to prescription medicines. Look, there are so many offerings out there, not to mention lots of different Qigongs too. Don't forget the 80-20 rule. Many of them are filled with religion and mumbo-jumbo. My style, Zheneng, is modern, scientifically proven, open and forward-thinking. It's not the answer, it's only part of it. I think a regular stretching and bending practice that gets the blood and energy surging around your body and building your internal resources is a really important addition to any life, especially a healing regimen. I think an excellent clean and balanced diet, free from toxins and filled with supportive vitamins and minerals, is a bedrock for healing. I'm finding it interesting how many things currently seem to have vitamin D deficiency as the root of the problem. But the only thing that will really heal you is your consciousness. I'll just repeat that once again. You can find complete healing for your body, no matter what the damage may be, and for your emotions, no matter how deep the cuts, in your consciousness. The search for your true self is the only game in town. Get out of your intellect, silence your thinking mind, and let the blueprint of you return to your body. Okay, one last note. One of my students observed amazing healings on a retreat in China. He personally knew 3 or 4 people who cured themselves of cancer in only 3 weeks whilst they were on retreat. They went home cured, their scans showing no signs of their illness. Over the next year, quite a few of them passed away from their cancer returning. What is the point of that? Why did that happen? It's important to remember that you need to heal your life. Your body may be showing the signs of your toxic relationship to a child, to your work, to your partner. The yin and yang of life are really expressed as love and hate. Do you love yourself enough to heal everything in your life? What's the point of going to China, spending a month healing yourself, and then going straight back to your horrific job, to your vile partner? The cycle just returns, and with it, the illness. Do you actually value your life? It's not important that you do, by the way. If you are just pure consciousness, then what does it actually matter? What value do you actually put on your life? 50k? 100k? More? Less? Is it worth moving from a house to a small 2-bed flat? Is it worth going through a divorce for? Is it worth being reset to a humble, basic pension rather than a lavish lifestyle? Is it worth going back on the bus rather than having a car? Is it worth alienating your children or grandchildren to save yourself? I think every life has a purpose. If you haven't realized or discovered this yet, then maybe you feel your life has no value. Have you found yours? Is your life purpose typified by survive until I die? Or do you suspect there's a bigger picture for you? I often say to my clients, when appropriate, I feel your path is to beat this illness and to show other people, your family, your children, etc., that they don't have to live and die this way. I ask people to consider the power of their healing for future generations. So, there it is. Are you getting what I'm selling? One of my clients, with a pretty serious diagnosis, recently came to me and said, I'm stopping class. I've taken a gym membership instead. Great. Continue the search outside. Stick to what you've always done. My path is a difficult one that only you can navigate. And that requires your total commitment and total faith in yourself. Or jump on a running machine and see where that gets you. My door is always open to people who have chosen to try other things. I'm not stupid enough to think that I offer the answer for everybody. I do honestly feel that anybody can heal anything if they find their true selves. But I also know there are many paths to the top of the mountain. It's clear to me, however, that our egos are very clever at stopping us from doing this work. The ego, it says things like, look, a new therapist. Look, a new book that promises, look, a new apparatus, stretchy and shiny to stretch on. Your ego wants anything but silence, leading to it being dissolved. If you think you've found the answer to your problems, use this test. New therapy, new book, new exercise, new diet, etc. Does it lead to A, total emptiness, no thoughts, and the true self emerging? Or B, something external, or to your mind being agitated and exciting with new ideas? I can only offer you my personal advice from 35 years worth of searching. Choose me or choose Dr. Google. The choice is really yours. If you are truly honest with yourself, then you'll find the path to total and complete healing with no compromise. Hao-la. Hao-la. Chinese for everything is good already. Everything is already healed.